Minjun was feared in Seoul's underworld. A Korean mafia boss whose name silenced rooms, whose presence meant loyalty and fate alike. He ruled with cold precision, tailored black suits, unreadable eyes, and a heart locked behind steel walls built by betrayal and blood. Yet, on that rain-soaked night, Minjun felt unbearably human. He sat alone in the private lounge of his high-rise hotel, city lights bleeding through the glass, whiskey untouched in his hand. Power meant nothing when loneliness clawed this deeply. He didn't want control. He didn't want obedience. He wanted to feel something. That was when Ayana walked in. She was a black woman with warm brown skin, natural curls pulled back simply, and eyes that carried gentleness and quiet strength. She worked as a translator and temporary event staff. Nothing about her belonged in Minjun's dangerous world, except destiny had other plans. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years his chest tightened. "Come closer," he said softly. Ayana hesitated. She knew who he was. Everyone did. But something in his voice wasn't threatening. It was lonely. "I will pay you," Minjun continued, his tone low and controlled. "For one kiss, nothing more." Her breath caught. 1,000 warnings screamed in her mind. Yet his eyes, dark, tired, honest, held no cruelty. "One kiss?" she asked. He nodded. "I just want to remember how it feels." Slowly, Ayana stepped forward. When her lips touched his, it was supposed to be quick, paid, forgettable, but it wasn't. Her lips were warm, soft, hesitant at first, and Minjun froze. His heart stuttered like it had forgotten its rhythm. He didn't move, didn't breathe, afraid the moment would shatter. Ayana pulled back, then leaned in again. This time she kissed him deeper. Something broke inside her too. She didn't know why, only that his stillness, his restraint, his unspoken pain drew her in. Her hands lifted to his chest, feeling the steady, dangerous beat of his heart beneath silk and scars. Minjun's hand came up slowly, cupping her cheek as if asking permission. That kiss turned into another, and another. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Neither noticed. When Ayana finally pulled away, her lips tingled, her heart racing. She whispered, confused. "I can't stop thinking about it." Minjun's thumb brushed her lower lip, eyes dark with something new. "Not possession, not control. Neither can I," he admitted quietly. "And that frightens me more than any enemy." From that night on, Ayana tried to walk away, but her body remembered him. Her lips remembered the way he had kissed her, like she was precious, like she mattered. And Minjun, the feared mafia boss, found himself waiting for her footsteps, memorizing her smile, craving not her body, but her closeness. He stopped asking for kisses, yet Ayana kept giving them. In elevators, in quiet hallways, in moments when his world grew too heavy. She kissed him because she wanted to, because she needed to, because somehow, against all logic, she had fallen for the man behind the monster. And Minjun, who once believed love was weakness, learned that her kisses were his only salvation. Not bought, not forced, but chosen. Again and again. Loving Minjun was never supposed to happen. Ayana knew at the moment she realized she waited for his messages, that her heart softened at the sound of his voice. He was dangerously wrapped in silk suits and silence. A Korean mafia boss whose world was built on blood oaths and shadows. And yet, with her, Minjun was gentle. Their romance lived in stolen moments. Quiet dinners in rooms guarded by loyal men who looked away out of respect. Late-night drives where Minjun kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting lightly over Ayana's fingers, as if anchoring himself to something real. He never rushed her, never demanded. He only watched her, like she was a miracle he didn't deserve. "This life," he told her once, voice low as soul slept beneath them, "will ruin you if you stay too close." Ayana met his gaze, fearless. "Then protect me." From that night on, Minjun's devotion became legendary. He dismantled threats before they reached her. Men who spoke her name with disrespect disappeared from his circle. His empire bent. not because she asked but because he chose her safety over pride. Yet their love was forbidden. His enemies would use her. His allies would see her as a weakness. The rules of his world said a man like Minjun could never love openly. So he loved her quietly. He kissed her forehead before meetings that could end in violence. He memorized the way she took her tea. He slept less, watched more, planned exits, always with Ayana in mind. When fear crept into her eyes, Minjun would pull her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "No one touches you," he whispered. "Not while I breathe." Ayana saw past the power, past the scars. She saw the boy who had learned too early that love was dangerous, and she loved him anyway. One night, after narrowly escaping an ambush meant for him, Minjun stood shaking, not from pain, but from the thought of losing her. "I would burn this empire," he confessed hoarsely, holding her face. "I would walk away from everything, if it meant keeping you." Ayana kissed him then, slow, certain, unwavering. "For the first time," she said softly, "you're choosing love over fear." And the feared Mafia boss, whose name once meant death, bowed his head not to power, not to fate, but to the woman who became his heart. Their love remained hidden from the world. But within the shadows it was absolute. A devotion so deep that even the underworld learned to respect it. Because some loves are not loud. They are protected. Marriage was forbidden in Minjun's world. A Mafia boss did not take a wife. He took leverage, enemies, and an early grave. Love makes men careless. Wives became targets. Children became bargaining chips. Minjun knew all the rules, and he broke every single one for Ayana. The night he decided, Soul was quiet. Ayana slept beside him, her breathing soft, one hand resting unconsciously over his chest, as if she trusted his heartbeat to keep her safe. Minjun lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing something terrifying. He did not fear death anymore. He feared losing her. The next morning he summoned the elders, men who had watched him rise from a ruthless heir to the most feared boss in the city. They sat across from him in silence, expecting orders, violence, and strategy. Instead, Minjun spoke calmly. "I am getting married." The room exploded. "You'll destroy everything. She will be used against you. A boss cannot kneel to love." Minjun stood, eyes cold, voice steady. "I am not kneeling," he said. "I am choosing." When one man dared to suggest removing Ayana for the sake of the organization, Minjun's gun was on the table in a blink. "That woman," he said quietly, "is my life. Anyone who touches her becomes my enemy." Silence followed. Some left. Some plot. Some stayed loyal. Minjun accepted the cost. He reduced his territory, cut unstable alliances, exposed traitors before they could move. He turned his empire smaller but unbreakable. Every decision revolved around one truth. Ayana would live free, even if he did not. When he told her, Ayana cried, not from fear, but from the weight of his choice. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I never asked you to risk everything." Minjun knelt before her then, not as a boss but as a man. "I was raised to believe love is weakness," he said. "But you made me stronger than fear. I don't want a life where I only survive. I want a life where I come home to you." He slid a simple ring onto her finger. No diamonds large enough to attract danger, only a promise. "I will protect you as my wife, not my secret." Their wedding was quiet. No press.no spectacle. Only a small garden outside the city, guarded by men who respected love as much as loyalty. Ayana wore white, glowing not with wealth but with peace. Minjun wore no weapons, only a vow in his trembling voice. "I was born in darkness," he said, holding her hands. "But I choose to live in the light you gave me." When they kissed, it wasn't desperate like their first. It was certain, unshakable. Forever. The underworld whispered for years about the Mafia boss who chose marriage over power, and how, against all odds, he never regretted it, not once. Leaving the Mafia was not something Minjun could announce. It had to be unraveled, thread by thread, quietly, carefully. So the world that once obeyed him would not turn on the woman he loved. Ayana noticed the change before anyone else. He came home earlier. He slept deeper. His phone rang less in the dead of night. But his eyes still carried storms. "I can leave," he told her one evening as they sat on the balcony, the city glowing beneath them. But the past never walks away easily. Ayana reached for his hand. "Then walk slowly. I'll walk with you." So Minjun began the long goodbye. He handed territories to men who valued stability over blood. He dissolved violent operations, turning them into legitimate fronts. Shipping, security, construction. He cut off the youngest recruits, sending them back to school, back to families. Some called it weakness. Minjun called it atonement. There were nights he returned with bruised knuckles and silence heavy in his chest. Ayana never pushed. She cleaned his wounds, pressed kisses to his scars, and reminded him with every touch that he was more than what he had been forced to become. "I don't see a monster," she whispered once, forehead resting against his. "I see a man trying." That was enough to keep him going. Enemies tested him when they sensed his retreat. A rival syndicate made a move, believing love had softened him. They were wrong. Minjun ended the threat swiftly but without excess. No messages, no cruelty, just a final line drawn in stone. "I am done," he told them, "and you will let me be." His reputation did the rest. Months passed, then a year. One by one, his men stopped calling him boss and started calling him chairman. Then simply Minjun. Power loosened its grip as love strengthened his spine. The final step came quietly. Minjun signed the last document transferring control and walked out of the building that had once defined his life. No guards, no weapons, just the wedding ring on his finger. At home, Ayana was waiting. He wrapped her in his arms, burying his face in her hair, breathing her in like freedom. "It's over," he said, voice breaking for the first time in her presence. "I'm home." Ayana kissed him. Slow, grounding, full of promise. "You didn't run," she said softly. "You transformed." Minjun smiled then. Not the dangerous curve that once terrified cities, but a real one, warm and human. The Mafia lost a king that day, and the world gained a man who chose love, peace, and a future built not on fear, but on devotion. Minjun's past never vanished, faded, like a scar that no longer hurts, only reminded. He and Ayana moved away from the city's sharp edges to a quieter place by the sea, where mornings smelled of salt and coffee instead of gun oil and fear. Minjun built a new life slowly, honestly, using his skills to protect rather than destroy. Security firms, community projects, silent donations that never carried his name. He never spoke about who he used to be. He didn't need to. Ayana saw it in the way he woke before dawn to watch the ocean, as if making sure peace was still real. In the way his hand always found hers in crowds. In the way he still stood between her and danger out of instinct, even when danger no longer followed them. Some nights, the past tried to return to dreams. Ayana would feel him tense beside her, breath uneven. She would turn, press a kiss to his shoulder, then his jaw, then his lips, soft, grounding, familiar. "I'm here," she'd whisper, and Minjun would breathe again. Years passed. Love settled into something deeper than passion, into shared laughter, quiet arguments, forgiveness, and unwavering loyalty. The man who once ruled fear learned to live gently. The boss who trusted no one learned to trust one woman completely. One evening, as the sun melted into the sea, Minjun wrapped his arms around Ayana from behind. "I thought power was everything," he said softly. "But it was you who taught me how to live." Ayana turned, cupping his face with a smile full of warmth and certainty. "And you taught me," she replied, "that even the darkest beginnings can lead to light." They kissed, not like a beginning, not like an ending, but like a promise kept. The world never knew the full story of the Mafia boss who walked away, but Ayana did, and for Minjun that was enough. Peace did not make their love smaller. It made it deeper. Life by the sea softened Minjun, but it never erased the strength that once made him feared. He woke each morning beside Ayana with a sense of purpose that power had never given him. He cooked now, clumsily at first, burning rice, laughing at himself while Ayana teased him gently. Those moments healed him more than he ever admitted. Ayana began to bloom too. She started teaching languages at a small community center, her laughter filling rooms that once echoed with silence. People trusted her easily. They had no idea she had loved a man forged in darkness. They only saw the warmth she carried, and the quiet devotion of the husband who waited for her outside every evening. Minjun still watched the horizon, not from fear but from habit. One afternoon, a letter arrived. No threats, no demands, just a name from his past, written in careful ink, acknowledging his departure and honoring his choice. The underworld had closed its door behind him at last. He folded the letter, exhaled, and walked into the kitchen. "It's finally done," he told Ayana. She didn't celebrate loudly. She simply stepped into his arms and rested her head against his chest, listening to a heartbeat that no longer ran from itself. That night, they danced barefoot on the balcony, music low, the sea humming below them. Minjun rested his forehead against hers, eyes shining with something rare and fragile. "I used to think love was something you survive," he murmured. "With you, it's something I wake up to." Ayana smiled, kissing him slowly, deliberately, like she always did when she wanted him to remember who he was now. Years later, neighbors would say the couple by the sea was unusually close, that the man with the quiet eyes never raised his voice, that he looked at his wife as if she were the only truth left in the world. They were right, because some love stories don't end with drama or fire. Their home was not grand. That was the beauty of it. It sat on a gentle rise overlooking the sea, white walls kissed by sunlight, wide windows always open to the breeze. Wind chimes sang softly on the porch, and flowering vines climbed the balcony rails. Ayana's touch everywhere. Minjun built most of it with his own hands, not because he had to, but because he wanted every corner to hold intention. The kitchen became the heart of the house. Every morning, Ayana woke to the quiet sounds of him moving around, barefoot, careful not to wake her. He brewed tea the way she liked it, strong but gentle, and left it steaming on the bedside table with a kiss pressed to her forehead. "You spoil me," she teased one morning, eyes still half closed. Minjun smiled, brushing her curls back. "I spent years taking from the world. Let me give it now." Evenings were sacred. They cooked together, hips bumping, laughter spilling easily. Ayana would play music while Minjun chopped vegetables with surprising focus. Sometimes he'd stop just to watch her sway, apron crooked, joy written plainly on her face. "You're staring," she'd say. "I know," he'd answer. "I waited a lifetime for this view." After dinner, they sat on the balcony wrapped in one blanket, the sea stretching endlessly before them. Ayana would rest her head on his shoulder while Minjun traced slow circles on her arm. His favorite habit, grounding, intimate. Inside the bedroom, love was unhurried. No urgency and no fear, just warmth, whispered promises, and kisses that lingered long after sleep claimed them. Minjun often held her through the night, one hand at her waist as if anchoring himself to the present. When nightmares came, Ayana didn't wake him with words. She kissed him, softly, repeatedly, until his breathing slowed and his grip loosened. And in the mornings, when sunlight spilled across the sheets, Minjun would press his forehead to hers and murmur, "Still here, always," she'd reply. The house filled with memories, shared breakfasts, quiet arguments resolved by touch, rainy afternoons spent reading side by side. Love lived there, not loudly but fully. The man who once ruled shadows now watered plants at dawn. The woman who once kissed him for money now kissed him because it felt like home. And within those walls, protected not by guards or weapons but by devotion, they built something unbreakable. Not an empire, a life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also Share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.